Live streaming is on.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Please turn on your camera. Andrew? I think his connection is not good. All right. So you watched Intolerable Cruelty this time?
Yeah.
And you read the article on lemons, market for lemons, right? So let's talk about this movie and the economic concept that you learned from this article and how it relates to the movie. Who would go first?
So basically, the movie just discussed, well, it kind of just gave kind of a representation of what, well, she was basically just in it for the money when she was marrying one person. And then it kind of just talks about the article kind of relates that to, costs of dishonesty. And there's, definitely other variables that are discussed in the article, like in insurance and symmetric information and all that. But the movie in the end just kind of gives examples of how divorces and people get into marriage for money, and then once something goes wrong, the entire I don't know how to say this, but the entire way of how to claim someone's property and kind of get what is either deserved to be, if it's either on the wife's part, or if it or the husband just keeps it for himself, and how is it split. Kind of just goes into that.
Okay. Other thoughts on it? What you saw in the movie? Did you watch the movie?
Yeah.
Right.
It was kind of like Denny said, that, I mean, the cost of dishonesty was the biggest thing I thought that came from the text, just because, I mean, it showed when she was with that one guy at the beginning, and he was able to show that, like, it wasn't love, and it was all about money, so she didn't end up getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of the biggest takeaway that I had from the text.
what did you learn from the article? So article talks about the market for lemons. What is the market for lemons? Can somebody explain it to me? No one has any idea about it? Brianna?
It's one of the things it talked about is how it's the consumer's responsibility to determine whether or not what they're getting is actually good or if it's bad, which if it's bad, it's called a lemon.
Mm-hmm. Anything beyond that? What is the market for lemons? How does it operate? All right, so any contract, that is executed, there are two sides to it, right? One is the buyer, the other one is the seller, typically. So there are two sides to any contract, and when you sign a contract, when you enter into a contract or agreement, there are two issues that you have to be aware of. And those issues arise because of one party not having the same information as the other party. And this is called asymmetric information. So the information that is, relevant to the contract is not available uh, equally to both sides. So that's your asymmetric information. So just to give you an example of what we mean by asymmetric information, let's go back to the market for lemons, right? The used car markets that's mentioned in the article. So in the used car market, um, there is a buyer and there is a seller, right? So the contract basically, the seller is trying to sell his car to the potential buyer, right? And who knows more about the condition of the car, the buyer or the seller?
The seller.
The seller. So clearly, the information is not, equal to both sides. The buyer knows less about the condition of the car than the seller, right? So this is your example of an asymmetric information. Let's consider another example: health insurance. So when an individual buys health insurance from the insurance company, who has more information about the health condition of the individual?
The individual buying it.
The individual buying it. That person knows whether he's in good health or not, right? But it's not revealed to the insurance company. So insurance company is at disadvantage here, right? They have less information here. So this is another example of asymmetric information. So when you have asymmetric information, there are two issues that arise. One is before the contract is signed between the two parties, and the other is after the contract is signed between the two parties. So the one that is signed after the contract the arise after signing the contract is called moral hazard, and we have discussed that concept in the context of financial panics, right, on the banking sector and so on. So moral hazard we have already discussed. So a good example of moral hazard I gave you was, uh, let's say you have car insurance, right? And then that makes you more risky driver because you know that you can get into an accident, and uh, even after getting into accident, if your car gets total and things like it needs repairs, the insurance company will foot the bill, right? So you feel protected in that financially, and therefore you could be a risky driver. You could take chances with your driving, as opposed to if you do not have an insurance, right? So that is an example of moral hazard. Or if you are buying health insurance, you already bought health insurance, then you know that if you fall sick, you are going to be treated, you are going to be seen by the doctor and things like that, and health insurance company is going to pay the bill. So in that case, you have probably less incentive to take care of your health. You may not exercise, you may eat junk food, you may smoke, things like that, right? Because you think, if something goes wrong, uh, I don't have to worry about it financially. Of course, not everyone will think that way, but there are people who can start behaving that way, and that is an example of moral hazard. So that happens after the contract has been signed, right? After you got your insurance. Now, in this article, we are going to look at before the contract is signed. And this scenario is called adverse selection. Okay, so what happens? Let me again give you an example of adverse selection. So let's continue with the health insurance market, right? So you want to buy health insurance, right? And you know more about your health condition. So let's say health insurance is a choice, right? You're not forced to buy health insurance. You make a choice whether to buy health insurance or not. Who is more likely to buy health insurance? Healthy people or the sick people? Anyone?
The sick, right?
The sick people, right? Because they are the one who need health insurance. Healthy people, especially younger people, they think they won't fall sick. They feel immortal. When you're young, so you think nothing will happen to you, right? And there's no need to buy insurance, pay premium, and things like that. If it's a choice, right? Many healthy people would choose not to buy. Can you see that? Just to avoid paying premium, and they'll be fine. I mean, most likely. Uh, so only sick people will end up buying insurance. And if sick people, majority of the people who got insurance are sick people, what happens to the insurance company then?
They're just paying out a bunch
They're
of
just
claims.
paying out. Exactly. Because there are not enough healthy people who will pay premium and not, require treatment, right? So mostly sick people will buy, and sick people will require treatments, and the insurance company has to keep on paying for them, and they'll run out of money. How insurance market works is that healthy people, those who are healthy today, they subsidize the sick people today. And when these healthy people become sick tomorrow, they will be subsidized by the healthy people tomorrow, right? The new wave of healthy people joining the market. So that's how insurance market works. So if only sick people are going to buy insurance, right, then insurance market is going to collapse. It's not going to work. So if you remember, we had this Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, as you remember it, right? And there was a lot of debate about it when it was first introduced. And one of the provisions in that was that everyone has to buy. It was forced on people basically. Otherwise, you pay penalty. If you don't buy, then when you're filing taxes, you have to pay a penalty at that time. Why do you think that provision was included? That everyone must buy insurance.
To make sure the insurance market doesn't crash.
That's correct. So there were a lot of oppositions, but you can see the logic why it was included. If you do not include it, insurance market is not going to work. Only sick people will end up buying. Healthy people will choose not to buy, most likely. Some will buy, but a lot of them won't buy. And then insurance market is going to collapse. So that was the reason why that mandate was included, that everyone must buy or pay a penalty. Basically, you recover the premium from them when they file for taxes. So it was not just politics, it was basically that's how the way insurance market works. But it became very politicized at that time. People didn't like the idea of not having choice in that regard. But if we give you a choice, what happens? The market doesn't work. Plain and simple. All right, so we understand adverse selection now, right? Let's talk about the market for lemons. So it's a used car market, right? And so let's say you are planning to buy a 2015 Honda Civic, right? And that's an old car, 5-year-old car. And let's say you think that there is a 50% chance the car would be a good car, right? So in that case, it's a peach basically, and you are willing to pay $10,000 if it's a peach. Okay, that's the market price of a good, car, Honda Civic, 2015 is let's say $10,000. And if it's a bad one, it's a lemon, then you do not value it more than $5,000. That's all you're willing to pay. Can you see that? But you are not certain whether the car is a lemon or a peach because you have less information about the car. Only the seller of the car knows that it's a peach, whether it's a peach or a lemon. So how do you pay for it? What kind of valuation you have then? So there is a concept called expected value, right? An expected value is basically probability of the car being peach multiplied by the price of the car that is a peach, and then plus probability of car being a lemon multiplied by the price of lemon car. So there is a 50-50 chance, so that's your probability, 0.5, 0.5, right? And probability must add up to 1, keep that in mind. So what is the expected value of this car then? So let me, can you click on your whiteboard on top? Can you see me writing?
No.
No. Did you click on the whiteboard near end meeting, left to the end meeting?
Oh, that.
That one, yeah. Click on that and see if you can see what I'm writing.
Yeah.
All right. So expected value is basically probability of peach, right? Times price of the car. So let's just use, rather than using notation, let me just use numbers. So expected price, right? So probability that the car is a peach is 0.5, right? 0.5 multiplied by the price of a peach, which is $10,000. And then plus probability that the car is a lemon. You can choose your background, white or something, and that way you will be able to see it. So probability that it's a hard to write on it. Times price of a lemon, 5,000. So what is this value equal to? 0.5 times 10,000 plus 0.5 times 5,000. What does it give you? 5,000 here plus 2,500, right? So that gives you a price of $7,500. All right. So that's the calculation we have here. Is that fine with everyone? What we mean by expected value? How we calculate? Okay. So basically, the idea is this: you do not know whether you are going to buy a peach or a lemon, right? The car that you're interested in. It could be a peach with 50% chance. It could be a lemon with 50% chance, right? So if that is the case, then the expected value is $7,500. So in other words, you would not be willing to pay more than $7,500 for the car. Basically, that's the average valuation of the car for you. So we understand that now, that you are not going to be paying more than $7,500 because you do not know whether you're getting a peach or a lemon. If we were certain that it's a peach, then you would be paying $10,000, right? That's okay, but you don't know that. So now let's look at, suppose you are selling the car and you have a peach and you know its value. You know it's not less than $10,000, right? That's what you want. And I'm going to offer you $7,500 for your car. Are you going to sell it to me? No. Can you see that? Because you want $10,000. You know it's a good car, and you should not be taking $7,500. So you are not going to sell it to me. Next, suppose you have a lemon, and I offer you $7,500. Are you going to sell it to me? Yes or no?
Depends how much you want to get rid of the car.
So your car is a lemon now, right? And you are planning to sell it, and I'm offering you $7,500. Are you going to sell it to me?
Maybe.
Because your car is worth only $5,000. You know that. You know it has problems. It's a lemon. And you are planning to sell it. You have advertised for it. But I'm offering you $7,500. It's a big deal, a great deal for you. Can you see that? Yeah. If people know it's a lemon, they'll pay you only $5,000. I'm paying you $7,500. You're making a profit on it.
Yeah, you sell it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see the situation now when you have information asymmetry. So what will happen? When you have this kind of situation, only bad cars will be offered in the used car market. Only lemons will be offered for sale. And market for peaches will disappear if you have information asymmetry. And this is an example of adverse selection. Only bad cars are coming to the market, not the good ones. So that's the situation. Now, how do we resolve it? Of course, that's not what happens in real life nowadays, right? Because you get good cars in the used market as well. How did we resolve that issue? How did we resolve the information asymmetry and overcame the adverse selection? Have you heard of Carfax?
Yeah.
What does Carfax do for you?
It breaks down all of the accidents and the problems that it's had with the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. So if you're interested in a used car, you just enter the VIN number, pay a fee. Sometimes seller gives you free access to Carfax, right? And then you know everything about the car's history, whether it was an accident or not, whether it was flooded or not, right? Anything, any repairs. So that way you are more confident about the car being a peach, right? And you would be willing to pay $10,000 if it meets your criteria. You see that? So a third party enters and certifies that the car is good. And you are okay with that, right? Because there's no vested interest here on the part of the seller. If seller will always say his car is good, you see that, because he has to sell it, even if it's not good. But a third party is telling you, no, the car is good, and you should pay $10,000. Then you would be okay with it. So that's how we resolve the adverse selection problem. So Carfax is a good example of that. Also, you could have taken the car to a mechanic and paid some money to inspect that car, right? And the mechanic, who is a third party, neutral party, looks at the car and tells you what is the problem with the car, right? If car is in a bad condition, you don't have to buy. You just lose your $50, $100, or whatever the mechanic charges you, right? But you didn't end up buying a lemon. So again, a third party enters the market, right? The mechanic, and looks at and inspects your car. So now let's connect this concept of adverse selection and moral hazard we discussed already, right, to the movie. In the case of marriage, marriage is another contract. You see it that way now, right? There are two sides, husband and wife, and they enter into a contract, marital contract, right? Think of it that way now. Tell me, what is the adverse selection issue here and the moral hazard issue here?
Would the moral hazard be, I'm going to marry this person, but at the same time, if this marriage doesn't work out, I'll be okay just because I'm going to get an appropriate settlement, I guess, from our contract.
That's correct. So let's look at it this way. So let's say you are a wealthy person, man or woman, it doesn't matter, right? You have a lot of money. And so you are single and you are very rich. So you will, get a lot of, proposals for marriage. And what is the first thing that comes to your mind about the person who wants to marry you?
They want your money.
That's the first thing you will think if you're a very rich person, right? Okay, is this person interested in me or my money, right? That's the first question that will come to your mind. And then how do you solve that problem then? Because that could be, it's possible that out of 10 people who are interested in marrying you, 8 of them are just after your money. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So how do you resolve that problem?
You make them sign a prenup.
Prenup is a good way to avoid that kind of situation. So if you sign a prenup and prenup says, okay, you would only get this much of money, then probably you can basically avoid that kind of bad pool of potential partners, because they know that if they marry you, there's not much money they can make if they divorce you later on. You see that? Because you have specified in the prenup. So that immediately probably 8 of them will just get out of the scene. Basically, they know that they're not going to make money out here. And the same way you can protect against moral hazard issue, right? So let's say uh, you get married, and then um, again, your behavior after marriage changes, right? Uh, and so in that case, also prenup helps basically. It changes your behavior, because of the prenup you have signed, right? You would not do anything that is not conducive to the marriage. A good learning lesson are from many celebrities, right? You see them getting married first time. At that time, probably they were not rich and famous, right? They got married, and then they became very rich, very famous, and then they ended up divorcing, and then their spouses, right? The settlements were very, very big amounts, right? A good case in point is Jeff Bezos, who got divorced recently, right? Um, they were married for very, very long time. I think they were married, and when Jeff Bezos was not very rich, and his wife ended up becoming one of the richest women in the world after the settlement, right? Almost 30-40 billion dollars worth settlement she got. Um, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been married thrice, right? His first divorce cost him a lot of money. The mother of Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr., right? Um, so that marriage cost him a lot of money, but he learned from that, and subsequent marriages he signed prenups. So his current wife Melania has a I don't know whether it's correct or not, but I read somewhere a long time ago before he became president that he has a contract signed, nuptial prenup, where Melania is going to get $2 million for every year she remains in marriage with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a billionaire, right? Supposedly. So she's not getting much money out of it. Can you see that? So the longer she stays, the more money she gets in the settlement. I think she's better off remaining married to him than divorced, because she's not going to get much money. But if she remains married, then she's the wife of a billionaire, right? So all the money and the perks, everything is there for her to use as his wife. So Donald Trump became very smart after his first divorce and started signing prenups. Just to give you an example, not saying this is what everyone saw, this is what, but these are the examples from real world, right? Uh, so, so you should always look at marriage also not only from relationship perspective, love, and everything else, but there is a business side to it too. And many people enter in marriage with that kind of mindset as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So now you have your fifth paper, I think the material for fifth paper, right? And so the movie you watched this week was Blow and Intolerable Cruelty, right? Blow talks about economics of crime, and Intolerable Cruelty introduces you to the economics of, uh, you know, information economics, basically, one asymmetric information and things like that, concepts of moral hazard, adverse selection. So I want you to include these concepts in your fifth paper, which is due on Monday. And the last week next week we have one movie and one paper to read, right? Doctor Strangelove is the movie, and paper basically is about game theory. So you are not going to write any paper based on this movie, but we can have a discussion sometime later. I will tell you all. Everyone will join at the same time. All right. Also, I think I will give you a survey to fill out. under week 6 module. Okay, so just to get your views on this platform. How was your experience so far? Clearly, it's like still under development, but I want to get your feedback on it and any suggestions you have to improve or something you don't like or think whatever you feel like. Right? You can give those feedback here. All right. Any questions, comments?
No.
All right. All right then. So work on your paper and we'll meet next week. I'll send you a notification for that. Okay. Take
That was
care.
good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.